What's happening, guys? Steve Maeda here with VenusianArts.com, and we're making an instructor Q&A video. You can email me at steve@VenusianArts.com or go to the Venusian Arts forum to really get involved in this, because it's a pretty badass discussion, not just about this topic, but about the many topics that we discuss. This is actually a reply. It's September 2nd to a video that we made a few days ago and put on the site that has to do with STDs and sex. In fact, the exact video is sex and STDs, stop shaming yourself, and it specifically has to do with a thread that talks about, that actually was titled something like herpes equals game over. And a guy was actually asking that question on the forum, and a bunch of people actually chimed in, like high-level people. It really actually pissed me off, saying, oh yeah, that sucks, you know, and yada yada yada, and they're making all these jokes, and you know, that's understandable, but no legitimate advice was given on it. So in the video, I basically said, hey, you know what? If you have an STD, that doesn't mean that your sex life stops. You can still have a good sex life. And that was the point of the video, to reply on that. However, you know, of course, you can email me, steve@VenusianArts.com, with your reply, or find me on the forum. But this guy actually found me on Facebook, social media. Bam, I dig it. And I shared the video on my Facebook page, and it actually got a huge amount of traffic and a bunch of replies. So Facebook, Twitter, any of that stuff there, we're all good too. But he actually says, hey man, how you doing? I love checking out your videos to see what you're doing from time to time, but I got to call you out in this last one. You literally said nothing to address the issue of how STDs can affect your life. I don't know if you've gotten anything, but if you're lucky enough to have been with so many women and not high five to you, man. He then goes on to describe how he had contracted a disease. And he says, the reason why I'm sharing this with you is that your video expressed absolutely zero compassion or empathy and despair for one who goes through learning something, that they've done something fun and amazing, and now medically, socially, it affects them for the rest of their life. Also, you clearly did no reading on this and or research before the video, and stop saying "or whatever" when describing, that's in quotes, well, describing something that is so specific and so impactful. Herpes is ultimately a rash, but that's it. But it does have a social stigma that's blown way out of proportion. He goes on to say how many people have pain with it, and your mentality of fuck it, go have sex anyway, which your video suggests. Yeah, I don't know if that was your intention. But, you know, basically you look like an idiot, and it goes on then to tell a story about how he has an amazing answer with stuff. And I'm happy for you that you do have an amazing answer. First off, number one, if you email me with something and you want a reply, like, be nice, you know, learn how to communicate. That's like one of the fundamental rules of social dynamics. And number two is get your information right. You go back, and I watched that video. I was like, holy shit, could you assume that I said those things? What the fuck is that? So I watched it a bunch of times. I had people within my groups. I have online groups that I run. I had them watch it and then later show them the email post that I got. And they kind of thought the same thing as me. Is number one, so that post is basically saying that your sex life does not stop if you have an STD. Your life will change, right? But the core things about you, your personality, the things which actually have real value and which will make you happy and healthy as a socially and sexually human being, in fact, in your entire expression, will not change. Okay, so that means your personality, your drive for sex, your love for sex, your ability to have sex, and your ability to have sex with people. It will change the approach. Guess what? If you're shorter, or if you get an injury, or if you live life and you wake up and the new day is new, and everything around you in the world has changed, because it does every day, you're going to have to learn a way to communicate again. All right? And to think that one moment, or maybe a series of moments, has affected me to the point where it has changed my individuality, well, it has changed those core things, is the exact recipe to get us into blame. And what I got from that email was something which is exactly what I'm talking about. Man, this disease, or your relationship with it, has got you to a point where, man, you think you're different, and that's fucked. The whole point of why I'm making these videos, and to be honest, I do not see any instructor, and man, I talk to a lot of instructors. I'm the host of the 21 convention. Man, I get exposure to a lot of people. I'm friends with a lot of people in this industry, and I do not see anybody leading the charge and talking about sexual health. I see people talking about sexual shame. I see people talking about what they think they're afraid of, but I don't see people talking from the experiences that they've had and moving into that sort of healthiness. And man, really what I got from that in its nature was that, fuck man, I'm sorry. I'm sorry if you got a disease, and that's really terrible, but guess what? You've got to move on. You've got to realize that your sexual expression is something that can be had. And if you watch the previous video, that's clearly stated. And let me tell you something about my life, because apparently I've done no research on this. Well, let me tell you what I've lived with, okay? And let me tell you the most important thing about my life right now is now, okay? It isn't then, but these are all things that helped me learn and helped me stop blaming it and realize that I could not do that and hold on to anything. My sex life started when I was 18. I went out with a girl for 2 weeks. We worked at a gas station together, and I went across the street to get some food. We were both there. She got kidnapped and gang raped. I saw the guys that kidnapped her. I later witnessed them, or ID'd them 16 years later when they finally got caught. So for a long time, they didn't get caught, 16 years. And man, it sucks. It's a terrible story. We continued to have a relationship. We had sex with condoms, and guess what? We both got riddled with massive amounts, not massive, but we had a lot of STDs, and it fucking sucked, and it confused me, and it made me think that everything about my life sucked. It made me think that this was the first person that I ever had sex with, in that I was a little bit maybe dishonest about it, or maybe something wasn't right, and look at what I got punished with. I didn't have sex with anybody for 3 years after that. It was terrible. It was a horrible, horrible experience. And I did all the research you can imagine on every fucking STD that was contracted. And there were a lot. And man, and to tell you, like, herpes is a small, small, small thing. Not to downplay it much, but man, when you got some real shit, you got some real shit. And since then, I've gone on to work in rehabs and spent massive amounts of time there. I've buried many friends and worked for HIV foundations and seen that disease ravage people's lives, as well as things like Hep C and many other things, man. And the whole disease of addiction is far, far worse. And to say that I make any of those things lightly is, man, just such a foolish and naive thing to say, because I've seen a lot of reality with it. Now, from that, guess what I learned? Guess what I learned? If you are a heroin addict, if you have HIV, if you have whatever STD, if you have any sort of defect that has come your way, whether you've gotten it all by yourself or somebody fucking gave it to you, it is yours and you have to own it. And in owning that, you can have any life that you want. Sure, there may be some absolute physical limitations, but when it comes to most sexually transmitted diseases, that is not the case. If you have something that is something like HIV or hepatitis C, there are ways to manage those. And there are strains and all sorts of different crazy stuff that, you're right, I do not know about, but I've had experience in witnessing them. And there are ways to recover and have a good, healthy life from that. Look, the main point of this, and let me get this very, very clear, is that if you live with your guilt and shame, if you live with your doubt, if you live with your trauma that has somehow defined you and shaped you, then you are not living with yourself. You are having something outside of yourself manifest your reality. And let me just make this clear once again. I've had stuff happen in my life. It affected and influenced me. But what I did with that and who I was with that and the choices that I made from that are what truly made me what I am today. And now let's take a few steps back. And if you have had something happen in your life that makes you feel that you are different, and you allow that to influence your decisions of whether or not you talk to a woman, whether or not you can express that you've had these issues that you have to bring up to someone, whether it's a disease or whatever, situations came your way, then let me tell you, you're going to learn how to voice them. You're going to have to learn how to live with them. But you can live a great life. And yes, I will absolutely say, which I didn't say in the last video, please go and have sex. Please go and relate with people. And please go and enjoy your life. To think that you're different and to think that you cannot talk about it is the problem itself. Look, the fact of the matter is is that it's a rough estimate, but anywhere from 60 to 80% of the population has some form of herpes. Now, that could be the oral kind, which can transmit, to the genital kind, but it could be all sorts of different variations. Then why are we so afraid of it? Why are we making a big deal about it? Why are we making what everybody has been influenced by be the deep, dark secret that we hold on to? If you're going to want to express, you need to be free. Look at yourself, live your life, and own it. Email me, steve@venusianarts.com, and we'll see you on the forum.